The dog interrupts the funeral by starting to bark at the casket when a man questions the reason the priest becomes nervous. Then, this man discovers a shocking secret. It was a cloudy day in the heart of New York City, and the sky seemed as sorrowful as everyone present at Emma's funeral. The crowd, numbering in the hundreds, stood in complete silence. Some held handkerchiefs, while others, with tear-filled eyes, remembered every happy moment shared with her. The wind blew softly, rustling the leaves of the trees in the nearby park, as if nature itself was paying its final tribute. Suddenly, an unexpected sound broke the silence. It was Max, Emma's loyal dog. He started barking incessantly. Max wasn't just any dog. He had always been Emma's inseparable companion. Now, in front of everyone, Max fixed his gaze on the casket, his barking growing louder and more insistent. People looked at each other, surprised and uneasy. "What is he seeing?" they whispered. Some seemed disturbed, pacing back and forth but unable to look away. Max's barking only grew, as if he were trying to warn about something. Max was a smart dog, and everyone in the neighborhood knew it. His fame went beyond the affection he inspired. He seemed to have a sensitivity that surpassed human understanding. Some children, seeing him there, began to feel a chill down their spines, remembering all those scary stories they had heard about dogs that could sense things humans couldn't. What was Max trying to communicate? It was clear that he knew something that unsettled even the adults, but no one dared to ask aloud. With his eyes fixed on a specific point, Max's behavior suggested something was wrong in that place, at that moment. Some adults began to approach Max, trying to calm him down. However, he kept barking non-stop, his gaze locked directly on the casket. There was something in his posture, an almost palpable determination, that even made the most skeptical hesitate. Curiosity filled the atmosphere, and soon everyone wanted to understand what he was trying to say. Father James, standing in the front close to the casket, noticed that all eyes were now on him and the dog. Max tried to contain his agitation, took a deep breath, and gestured for people to settle down again. But the barking didn't stop. With a faint and uncomfortable attempt at a smile, the priest realized that something strange was unfolding, and Max's gaze seemed to insist that no one ignore what was happening. The priest decided to approach Max. Using a gentle voice, he tried to talk to the dog, saying, "Come on, Max, calm down. Everything is fine here." But even so, Max continued to bark, as if he were trying to warn of something terrible that no one could see. Cautiously, the priest extended his hand to stroke the dog's head, but Max pulled back, letting out a low growl without taking his eyes off the casket. The priest began to sweat, wiping his forehead as he looked around, aware that everyone in the church was watching his every move. "It's just a dog," he said with a nervous laugh, trying to get people to focus back on the ceremony. But deep down, even he seemed uncomfortable, almost as if he sensed that something bigger was at play, something Max insisted on revealing. Some people noticed that the priest avoided looking directly at the casket, as if he didn't want to see what Max seemed to be seeing. "Does he know something?" whispered an elderly woman to her friend beside her, with a suspicious look. Others began to feel a strange chill, as if something invisible and inexplicable was present. The children, intrigued and a bit scared, moved closer to their parents, gripping their hands tightly. Father James, realizing that the unease was only growing, raised his voice firmly and requested, "Please, someone take the dog outside." But Max refused to leave. He stayed there, relentless, barking and staring at the casket as if he had an urgent message to convey. And the mystery, instead of dissipating, only grew among those at the funeral. Amidst it all, there was a man no one knew well, someone who seemed out of place yet perfectly positioned to witness what was about to unfold. His name was Liam, a stranger who had recently arrived in the city but who, for some reason, held a special affection for Emma, even without knowing her deeply. Liam had an observant nature and a restless curiosity. Solving mysteries had always been his passion, and noticing Max's unusual behavior, he immediately felt that something was very wrong. He looked at Max, and then at the casket, realizing that the dog wasn't barking for no reason. He stood up slowly, adjusted his coat, and walked toward the dog. All eyes turned to him, curious, wondering what this mysterious man, whom they barely knew, would do. "Hello, little friend," murmured Liam, crouching beside Max. "What are you trying to show us?" Hearing Liam's calm voice, Max stopped barking for a moment, as if assessing the man in front of him. His eyes shone, filled with intelligence and a mix of fear and hope, as if he were pleading for help. Liam noticed the intensity of that gaze, and then turned his attention in the same direction as the dog, fixing his eyes on the casket. A chill ran down his spine, as if something was pushing him to uncover what was really happening there. The people in the church began to whisper, confused and intrigued. "Leave the dog alone," said one of the men, attempting to interrupt the moment. But Liam just shook his head, replying, "I think Max is trying to tell us something." He continued to stare intently at the casket and added, "And maybe we should listen." Without further hesitation, Liam moved even closer to Max and said in a low tone, "Come on, boy, show me what's bothering you." Max wagged his tail slightly, as if he understood that Liam was there to help him. He then stopped barking and began to sniff the ground, taking cautious steps toward the casket, almost as if he were guiding Liam to a secret only he knew. As Liam and Max approached the casket, the neighbors began murmuring among themselves about the legendary sixth sense of animals, recalling stories of dogs and cats that supposedly sensed presences, dangers, or even supernatural events before any human noticed. Max's unsettling behavior left everyone on edge, and Liam suggested that perhaps the dog was perceiving something invisible to human eyes. The atmosphere grew heavier, and people wondered in silence, could Max be seeing something supernatural, or was there an even deeper mystery surrounding Emma's death? Father James, clearly uncomfortable, began to realize that the situation was slipping out of control. He took a deep breath, adjusted his cassock, and cast a serious look around. With firm steps, he walked to the center of the church and raised his hands, asking for silence. "Please, everyone, calm down," he said, with a voice that sought firmness, but trembled slightly, revealing his nervousness. "We are here to pay our final respects to Emma, someone so dear to all of us." The priest gave a penetrating look at Liam, who was still beside Max, trying to decipher what the dog wanted to show. "It is inappropriate," continued the priest, now in a louder tone, "for anyone to come here and cause a commotion at such a delicate moment." Some people in the church nodded, but others looked at the priest with a mixture of distrust and curiosity. Why did he seem so nervous? Why was he so eager to end this situation? Then, the priest pointed directly at Liam. "What you are doing is a disrespect to Emma," he declared in a louder and harsher tone. "Leave that dog alone and stop distracting everyone with these foolishness." Liam, feeling the weight of the priest's words, remained steadfast. Something about the priest's insistent manner, that exaggerated urgency to calm the situation, only heightened Liam's suspicions. Beside him, Max let out a low growl, as if he too disliked the priest's tone. Realizing he was losing control, the priest insisted, almost pleading, "Please, everyone, do not allow Emma's memory to be tarnished by this behavior. Let us return to our original purpose, to pray for her soul and her eternal peace." But for many there, peace seemed farther away with each passing moment. The priest's words sounded filled with concern, but for those observing closely, the sweat on his forehead and the slight tremor in his hands told a different story. A heavy silence settled over the place, and everyone waited anxiously to see what Liam's next move would be. The truth unfolds. Liam, sensing Father James's discomfort and his desperate attempt to end the conversation as quickly as possible, decided to ask the question everyone feared to hear. With a firm voice and his gaze fixed on the priest, he asked, "Father James, how exactly did Emma die?" The church erupted into chaos. Murmurs grew louder, and some people exchanged glances, surprised at Liam's boldness. Father James's eyes widened, visibly shaken. He had already told everyone that Emma had passed away peacefully, sleeping in her bed. But in that moment, Liam's question echoed through the church like a stone cast into a serene lake, creating ripples of uncertainty. "What do you mean, how did she die?" the priest replied, now in a clearly defensive tone. "I found her myself in her bed. She passed in peace, sleeping." "She died in her sleep," he repeated, almost as if trying to convince himself. Liam, undeterred, took a step forward and continued, "But why was Emma alone, and why were you the first to find her? Doesn't that seem a bit strange to you?" The murmur among the people grew louder. A mix of curiosity and unease spread throughout the church. The children, wide-eyed, watched without fully understanding what was happening, while some adults whispered among themselves, making the atmosphere even more tense. Father James's face turned red, and an expression of anger barely concealed took over his features. He stamped his foot firmly, making everyone fall silent once more. "This is absurd," he exclaimed, his voice almost a shout. "You are causing an uproar during a sacred moment, disrespecting the memory of such a beloved woman." Pointing at Liam with a trembling finger, he commanded, "Leave here immediately, you and that dog." His voice held authority, but there was a perceptible nervousness in every word. "We will not tolerate another word from you in this place." Liam hesitated for a moment, but then beside him, Max let out a strong bark, almost as if he were challenging the priest and giving Liam the push he needed to continue. As if in response to the dismissal, Liam realized he had touched on something important, something the priest clearly didn't want anyone to uncover. Still, he knew that in that moment, he had no other choice. He slowly turned, took hold of Max's collar, and with one last defiant look at the priest, began to walk toward the door. As the murmurs among those present grew louder, everyone was perplexed by what had just happened. The investigation begins outside the church. Liam felt the weight of the curious and suspicious glances of the community behind him, but he couldn't simply leave it all behind. There was something deep and dark in the mystery surrounding Emma's death, and a strong premonition drove him to press forward. Max seemed to share this feeling, wagging his tail with enthusiasm as if he were ready for whatever lay ahead. "Come on, buddy," Liam whispered to the dog. "I think we have a lot to uncover here." And with that, they began their investigation through the city streets, walking among the towering skyscrapers and bustling crowds. The cold wind blew, making the city's flags dance and producing a sound that resembled whispers in the unsettling silence. Liam looked around, increasingly certain that this place hid something mysterious. Max sniffed the ground restlessly, as if searching for something specific. Guided by an almost supernatural intuition, he seemed to know exactly where to go. Determined to follow the clues, Liam concluded that the first step was to learn more about Emma's life. He made his way to her apartment, a small unit in a high-rise building on the edge of Central Park, surrounded by a garden that seemed forgotten by time. When he arrived, he found the door unlocked, as if someone had left in a hurry, leaving behind more questions than answers. Upon entering the apartment, Liam felt a chill run down his spine. The place was covered in dust, but he noticed that some objects seemed to have been moved recently. With Max sniffing beside him, Liam began to explore every corner, opening drawers, rummaging through papers and documents. It was then that he found a small wooden box on an old table. Inside it, there were letters and photographs, all yellowed with age. As he read the letters, he realized that Emma had kept many secrets. The texts mentioned secret meetings and conversations she had with people from outside the city. But it was when he found one specific letter that his heart raced. Handwritten by Emma, the letter mentioned Father James, revealing that she had discovered very serious things about him. Liam exchanged a glance with Max, who seemed restless, as if sensing they were getting close to something important. Continuing his search, Liam found a small key taped to the back of one of the frames on the wall. "What does this key open?" he murmured to himself. Max let out a short bark, as if encouraging Liam to keep going. Next to the key, there was a photograph. In it, Emma stood beside Father James, with the church in the background. What caught Liam's attention most, however, was a detail at the bottom of the image, a small metal box, identical to the one Emma had described in her letters, mentioning that the priest hid money. "We're on the right track, Max," Liam said, petting the dog. "If Emma was trying to tell us something about the priest, maybe this key is the answer we need." Liam felt a wave of determination. With the small key in hand, and Max by his side, he knew the truth was closer than ever. Now he needed to discover what the priest was hiding, and for that, he would have to search every corner of the city. The confrontation with the key in hand, Liam felt closer than ever to unraveling the mystery. Together with Max, he decided to return to the church, where he could continue his investigation. The city seemed calm, but Liam sensed that something dark was hidden behind that tranquility. He needed to understand the secrets Emma had kept and what exactly she knew about Father James. With this in mind, Liam went to the city's central library, an old place filled with shelves of dusty books and ancient documents. He began to search for anything that might link Emma and Father James to something out of the ordinary. After some time searching, he found an old photo album of the city. Flipping through the pages, Liam saw photos of community events, religious festivals, and finally, a series of photos of Emma. One of them immediately caught his attention. It was an image of Emma beside Father James, but what stood out most was the expression on her face, a look of unease. almost as if she knew something that deeply frightened her. What had Emma discovered? Liam wondered. She didn't look happy. She looked worried. That's when Liam noticed a detail that almost went unnoticed. On the edges of the photo, a small metal box, the same one he'd seen in the photograph found at Emma's apartment. Driven by curiosity, Liam returned to her apartment, determined to follow the clues to the end. Back at the apartment, he continued his search for more evidence. Behind an old curtain, he found a hidden cabinet. Inside, he discovered a notebook, Emma's diary. The pages were filled with notes that seemed incredibly important. Liam began to read quickly, with Max by his side, as if the dog could also feel the tension building in the air. The notes revealed something dark. Emma had uncovered a network of corruption within the church itself. She mentioned that Father James was embezzling money from the congregation for a sinister purpose, secretly accumulating large amounts. He's stealing from everyone and using people's trust to cover up his crimes, Emma had written on one of the pages. Among the pages of the diary, Liam found an envelope with more photographs. In some of them, Father James appeared in secret locations within the church, carrying the same small metal box. In one of the photos, he stood beside an old statue inside the church, with the box next to him in a position that suggested he was hiding something beneath the sacred figure. A chill ran down Liam's spine. So that's it, he murmured to Max, almost to himself. She discovered everything, and that's why she was in danger. Now Liam knew he needed to find that metal box in the church. It likely held the key to understanding the entire mystery. He looked at Max, who wagged his tail as if he were ready for the next step, as if he knew that something big was about to be revealed. "Come on, boy. We have a big secret to uncover," Liam said, with renewed resolve. The situation was more serious than he could have imagined. With all these findings, the truth about what was really happening in that small corner of the city seemed about to surface. Holding Emma's diary in his hands, Liam felt the weight of each word, each revelation, as if he were carrying a burden that could only be lifted by discovering the truth. He knew he needed to return to the church, the place where all these secrets seemed to intertwine. The final showdown with Max by his side. Liam walked through the narrow city streets, each step intensifying his adrenaline and determination. He was determined to find the metal box mentioned in Emma's notes. The key to everything was there, waiting to be uncovered. Upon reaching the church, Liam looked around to make sure no one was following him. The place was steeped in silence, with the doors slightly ajar and the interior cloaked in shadows. He entered cautiously, accompanied by Max, and began to explore. He remembered the photo he'd seen. The metal box was hidden beneath one of the old statues. Walking slowly, Liam approached a statue of a saint positioned in an isolated corner of the church. The stone figure seemed to observe everyone with a serious, almost stern gaze, as if guarding something important. Liam knelt, and with trembling hands, began to feel around the statue's base, searching for any sign of a hiding place. And then, he felt it. There was something there. Liam moved aside a small piece of fabric covering the statue's base, hidden in the shadows, and there it was. The metal box Emma had mentioned in her diary. His heart raced, and he exchanged a look with Max, who wagged his tail as if to say, "We're on the right track." Liam held the box in his hands, feeling its cold, heavy surface. Carefully, he opened the lid, and what he saw inside made him catch his breath. They were bundles of money, all rolled up and tied with labels indicating donations and tithes from the congregation. But that wasn't all. Beneath the money, there was a small key. He picked it up, examining it in the soft light filtering through the church windows. "A key," Liam murmured thoughtfully. "But what does it open?" That's when he noticed a yellowed piece of paper, folded and hidden beneath the money. Carefully, he removed it and unfolded it. It was a map, and in the center, a location was marked with a red circle. Beside the circle were the words, "Church Storage." Liam understood immediately. The key must open some secret storage in the church. This is where Emma must have discovered something, he thought with a mix of fear and hope. He knew he had to act quickly. With the key held firmly in his hand, he looked at Max and said, "Let's go, boy. We need to find that storage." They stood up and together began to search every corner of the church, determined to uncover the mystery that had been hidden for so long. The hidden truth following the map carefully, Liam felt the church grow ever more silent, as if the very building were holding its breath. With the key and map firmly in his hands, He and Max made their way to the spot indicated on the paper. The map led them to a small door hidden behind the altar, a door that few people even knew existed. A chill ran through Liam as he approached. The air felt colder there, laden with a dark presence, as if something sinister were kept in that place. He inserted the key into the lock, took a deep breath, and turned it. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into a dark basement. With a flashlight flickering in his hand, Liam began to descend the steps, and Max followed closely, his ears attuned to any strange sounds. At the bottom of the stairs, they found a damp, shadowy corridor. At the end of the corridor, a faint light flickered, casting uneven shadows on the stone walls. Then Liam heard a sound, the clink of chains moving. "Emma?" he called in a whisper, but all he heard was the echo of his own voice reverberating in the emptiness. As he entered the room, lit only by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling, he saw her, Emma, chained to a chair, pale but alive. "Liam," she exclaimed, relieved. But before he could reach her, he heard heavy footsteps behind him. Turning, he found Father James holding a wooden plank firmly, his eyes blazing with fury. "You shouldn't be here," the priest shouted, his voice distorted by rage. "I told you, you would never find Emma." Liam barely had time to react before the priest lunged at him, trying to strike him with the plank. He managed to dodge, but the blow grazed him, causing him to lose his balance and fall to the floor. Trying to defend himself, he raised his hands, his mind racing with one question: how could a priest do something like this? It was inconceivable. Seeing him on the ground, the priest prepared to strike again. But Max, without hesitation, let out a fierce bark and lunged at the priest, sinking his teeth into his leg with all his might. The priest's scream of pain echoed through the basement walls. He tried to shake Max off, but the dog wouldn't let go, determined to protect his friend. In desperation, the priest dropped the plank and began to try to escape, limping and calling for help. Liam quickly got to his feet, his heart pounding, and ran after him. He can't get away, he thought, knowing the truth needed to come to light. With Max still on Father James's heels, they reached the street, where the noise of the commotion was already drawing residents out of their homes. People watched, shocked, seeing Father James, a man who was supposed to be respected and honored, involved in a desperate struggle with Liam, while Max kept him under control. Taking advantage of the moment, Liam raised his voice and shouted, "Stop! Everyone needs to hear what really happened. Everyone needs to know the truth." With the priest struggling to break free, Liam quickly explained what he had uncovered: the box with the stolen money, Emma's kidnapping, and Father James's hidden crimes. Shock spread across the faces of the city residents, who could barely believe what they were hearing. Desperate, Father James tried to run, but Max held him firmly in place until some men approached to help restrain him. With the priest finally contained, Liam knew it was time to present the evidence. He led the group back to the church and, with still trembling hands, opened the metal box before everyone. The residents' eyes widened at the sight of the embezzled money and the map to the secret storage where the priest hid his illicit activity. There were no doubts left. The truth had at last been revealed. Liam then led everyone to the storage room, where Emma, still frightened, awaited her release. The relief on her face was evident, and Max, sensing his mission was complete, wagged his tail happily. With Father James immobilized and the evidence of his crimes in plain view, it seemed that the mystery had finally been solved. The entire city was in shock, stunned by the revelations. But Liam knew that Father James was not someone who would surrender easily. As the residents discussed what to do next, the priest, in an act of desperation, seized a moment of distraction and, with an expression of deep hatred, managed to break free from those holding him. In a swift and desperate move, Father James grabbed a piece of wood from the ground and ran toward Liam, his eyes burning with fury. "You understand nothing. You never should have gotten involved," he shouted with a voice full of resentment. Liam was caught off guard, watching the priest advance with the wooden plank raised, ready to strike. For a moment he was paralyzed, his mind struggling to process the surreal scene of a priest acting with such violence. But before the blow could land, Max sprang into action. With a powerful leap, the dog bit Father James's leg, tearing a scream of pain from him that echoed down the street. The priest fell to the ground, thrashing to free himself from the dog, while Liam, recovering from the initial shock, ran to help. He tried to pull the priest away from Max, and the two ended up rolling on the ground in an intense struggle, with shouts and barks filling the air. Desperate, Father James managed to break free from Max for a brief moment and began to run, limping toward the city's main square. But Max didn't give up. Determined, he chased after the priest, barking loudly, and quickly caught up with him in the middle of the square. With another leap, Max knocked Father James to the ground, preventing his escape. The neighbors, now gathered around, watched the scene in disbelief. No one could have imagined that Father James, a man who was supposed to symbolize goodness and faith, would find himself in such a humiliating and desperate situation. Liam approached the crowd, still catching his breath, and began to recount in detail everything he had discovered. People listened intently as he spoke about the secrets Emma had uncovered. Liam explained that Emma had found out Father James was embezzling the congregation's donations, using the money for something hidden. He also shared how the priest had orchestrated Emma's kidnapping to stop her from speaking the truth. Some residents, shocked by what they were hearing, helped hold Father James, while Liam, determined to prove he was telling the truth, led them back to the church. There he held the small metal box firmly, feeling not only the weight of its contents, but the weight of the truth he was about to reveal. In front of everyone, he opened the box, showing stacks of money, organized and labeled with the names of the faithful who had donated. Shock spread among the people, who murmured to one another, surprised to see the proof of the priest's crime. Then, Liam showed the key he had found, and explained that it led to a secret storage room in the church itself. With the crowd following him, he led them to the storage room, where Emma, still weak, was chained. Seeing her there, alive, a sigh of relief and surprise swept through everyone. Emma, exhausted but relieved, could hardly believe she was safe. Max, the loyal dog, ran to her, wagging his tail happily, as if he knew his friend was now safe. The scene was touching, and everyone watched with emotion and relief, seeing Emma back and knowing the truth had come to light. Exposed, Father James tried to justify himself, but no one wanted to hear his excuses. The community, once devoted and trusting, now clearly saw who he really was. The priest's words no longer mattered, as everyone had seen the truth with their own eyes. Liam and Max had uncovered the dark side of someone they'd never have suspected. With the priest finally detained, and the community aware of everything, the mystery was solved, and justice was served. Emma, moved, thanked Liam and Max for risking everything to save her and reveal the truth. Father James was taken away by the police, while the city, still in shock, began to rebuild itself on new foundations of transparency and trust. The residents, now aware of the dark secrets that had been hidden, united to transform the place into one of truth and honesty. Liam, who had risked so much to uncover the truth, decided to stay in the city. He chose to help Emma recover and became part of the community, finding a new purpose there. Liam's friendship and courage touched everyone, and he became an essential part of the place. Max, the loyal companion, was celebrated as a true local hero. Children gathered around him, adults petted him, and the entire city recognized the dog's role in bringing the truth to light. United by sacrifice and bravery, the residents found a new beginning, with a renewed spirit and a commitment to truth that would strengthen them in the future. Thank you so much for watching the video to the end. If you enjoyed the story and the bravery of Max and Liam, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your participation is very important to us.